You just had the blessing of hearing Nancy Hay Slider and seeing her husband, Kit Slider. And I had the privilege of meeting them in August of 2008, probably about 200 yards from here at the Upper Capitol Park at a Fathers Conference. And I already knew about them because I was in the Arlington County, Virginia courthouse with my computer. I'm a court reporter, and so I had my computer, and they had internet access, and so I Googled court corruption Arlington. And what came up but the story of Nancy and Kit Slider. And so I researched it further, so then when I met them, I knew immediately what it was, and this was on a Saturday, and I said, well, I'll get with you shortly, and I got with them the next day on a Sunday. And if I'm recalling correctly, there was something like, 7,000 or 8,000 pages of 7,000 pages of documents, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I spent several hours there, and I read and I read and I read, and I never saw the initial order that supposedly was given by the Child Protective Services of Arlington. And so I said, where's this order that is referred to? And she says, oh, it's over here. And she got it for me. And why I make that point is that they spent over $100,000 on defense attorneys. She had one, he had one, and her mother had one, the grandmother of the child. None of these lawyers had that first essential document in over, I think it's 7,000 pages of court documents. That one document shows that Arlington CPS was out of bounds. There's a block that said what CPS would do, and it was blank. After they came home from the hospital, the next day the CPS worker came and pounded on the door and says, I want to see the child. So they wanted to be cooperative. They let the CPS worker, Dana Zemke or some other name like that, come into the house, and Dana Zemke says, well, I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like this, I don't like this. So they tried to accommodate. The next day she comes back and knocks on the door in the same sort of routine of, sort of a haughty, intruding attitude of the Child Protective Services. And so the third day they had talked to some people and they said, wait a second, we've got rights. We're Americans, we've got some rights. So Kit met Dana and Leslie, somebody or other, Moran, outside of the house on the Saturday, and said no, that they couldn't come in because the order didn't say that CPS could come in. It said that a nurse could come in and that various medical people could come in, but not Child Protective Services people and not lawyers. Who knows what they're useful for? But they couldn't come in according to the order. And so Dana Zemke says to Kit Slider, so that's the way you want to play, or you want to be. I'll see you in court on Monday. And sure enough, on Monday, Dana Zemke went to court, and some biased juvenile and domestic relations court judge, what's her name? Esther Wiggins Lyle. Proceeded to grant an emergency order of removal. They immediately called an attorney on Saturday when they got this confrontation by Dana Zemke. And the lawyer tried to call that Saturday, but of course the offices are closed, so nobody answered. They immediately called on Monday morning and spoke to someone and said, let's negotiate, let's mediate this issue. But the CPS wouldn't do that. They tried to get a lawyer who was, trained in this sort of thing. But basically, the court case came before they were even able to have adequate legal counsel to represent them and their child, Sabrina, 3 weeks old. And you heard just a moment ago how they said that the child lost weight when it came home from the hospital. And that's true. Guess what? A lot of children do that. But then
90% of them.
One says 80 to 90% of children lose weight after they leave the hospital. But then in addition, the mother was concerned about it, so she told the doctors, went to the doctors, and the doctors prescribed a supplementary formula. But the doctor, who is either a resident or something, not very experienced, gave half of the proper prescribed dose. And so the mother, trying to be very obedient to what the doctor said, prescribed, served that amount. And the baby continued to lose weight a little bit until the mother went, and a more senior doctor says, well, why don't you bring the child back into the hospital so we can see if there's any problem. And the child was born at Fairfax Hospital, but they live in Arlington, so they went to Arlington Hospital. And basically the rules are that if you bring a baby back into the hospital, immediately CPS is notified that there may be a child neglect or child abuse issue. And so then understand that Child Protective Services makes money when they start opening cases. They get money from the Federal Department of Justice. So they have an incentive to, bring cases.